Um, I was invited to talk about how the pandemic we've lived through or are living through has influenced my work, because of course it did. I had my year lined up, but all my plans fell apart and everything was cancelled. And we were in a constant state of fear and confusion. But like so many times before, it is like Virginia Woolf provides me with just the right stuff at just the right time, which aids me in understanding a difficult situation. I discovered Virginia Woolf when doing an artistic PhD in graphic design, focusing on Norwegian crafts traditions. And when I learned that she was a self-taught letterpress printer, as I was, I started wondering if my legacy as a self-taught female printer came from a different angle than the industrial one. Virginia Woolf and her husband Leonard Woolf bought their own printing press in March 1917, first as a hobby, to get their minds off the writing. But the Hogarth press developed over the years to become a success story, and my research went from being about the technology itself to looking at how Virginia Woolf's practice as a printer was crucial for her to develop her style and publish on her own terms, and how the form influenced the content. There are 3 works that she's written, typeset, and published herself: The Mark on the Wall, Kew Gardens, and On Being Ill. I did my PhD on The Mark on the Wall from 2 stories, which is the very first pamphlet they published in 1917. It is the first text she wrote to typeset, print, bind, and publish herself, and it is in all its aspects a product of an author deeply involved in the becoming of the book. She was 35 years old at the time and had worked as a writer for a long time, but her publisher had been her stepbrother who had sexually abused her. So the fact that Woolf acquired her own printing press is not just a rebellion, but a liberation. And she repeatedly urges women to obtain their own printing presses in the essay 3 Guineas. First, you need a room of your own to write, and then you need a printing press in order to publish what you've written. So this inspired me to set up my own press in the basement of my home, which I'm sitting right now, and to claim ownership of every aspect of my practice as a printer. So I researched Virginia Woolf through long and straining printing processes. It's just as much about investigations of time, to see what happens with the body and how my thoughts are affected by working with a relatively monotonous task that demands focus for a long period of time. And I want to convey to people outside the printing community what it requires to typeset, how the words affects your whole body, how it flips the whole relationship between typesetting and reading in relation to the body, from something intimate and tangible to something big and fragmented. The format and limitations is the printing press, the type, the words, the sheets, and sometimes the room. So what happens if I break up an entire text, a piecemeal examination of a text as form and fragments, like quilts, where each print can be read as a separate image and as part of a whole, in the same way as the text itself invites to. March 23rd, 2020, sentence number 1. I was planning on doing a project on Kew Gardens now, but due to COVID-19, it's fallen apart and I've cast my eyes upon On Being Ill, the 3rd and last of Woolf's own works, which she printed and published in 1930. The story is about the consequences of illness, loneliness, isolation, and vulnerability. But it also points out that when we are forced to stop and slow down, we may notice the beauty in the small details of the world around us, and that our everyday ordinary life is what we miss the most. I like being alone working, and I'm blessed with a workshop at home, but now we have a 4-year-old at home too. So I'm structuring a quarantine project that works with the circumstances. 1 sentence every day, in addition of 20, from On Being Ill until we can go back to normal. I hope I will not make it through, as we're counting about 140 sentences, and the paper is restricted to leftovers from my stock. And I'm obliged to post today's sentence on Instagram and offer a collective slow reading. March 29th, sentence number 7. He's forced to coin words himself, and taking his pain in one hand and a lump of pure sound in the other, as perhaps the inhabitants of Babel did in the beginning, so to crush them together that a brand new word in the und drops out. I'm through week 1. It's nice to have a ritual, a record of the days. Going through these stories sentence by sentence, it becomes clear that Woolf treated the text as something material, something tactile, where thoughts and words are meta. Although Letterpress is highly rational, concrete, and mathematical, the words are not. April 4th, sentence number 13. I like how these full stops. They're like little diamonds. I've been very into full stops for some years now. Full stops are life, a sign telling us to draw breath, to pause for a shorter or longer while. If this time we're living now is a glyph, I guess it's a full stop and a break. And it might be a good time to reflect on how to continue. There will always be a new sentence and a new beginning. April 5th, sentence number 14. But with the hook of life still in us, still we must wriggle. 2 weeks down. It feels like an instant and forever at the same time. I've no thoughts beyond Easter. Until we have new guidelines from the government for the coming weeks, it feels like waiting for a bus in the cold. It's this strange time perspective that I experience Woolf has captured so greatly in this short story. Funny word even, short story. It certainly is not to me. April 12th, sentence number 21. Every time people do something unconventional with something tied to conventions, there will always be people feeling the urge to tell you what you're doing wrong and how you ought to be doing things, instead of asking why you are unconventional in the first place. A reader criticized the printing in On Being Ill, and Virginia Woolf replied, all I have to urge in excuse is that printing is a hobby carried out in the basement of a London house, that as amateurs, all instructions in the art was denied us, that we have picked up what we know for ourselves, and that we practice printing in the intervals of lives that are otherwise engaged. What is interesting is what being unconventional did for her. To put it in her own words, to change style at will, and being the only woman in England free to write what she likes. And I need to mention also that it was at the St. Bride's School of Printing that they were turned away in 1917, naturally. April 17th, sentence number 26. In Spanish Flu and the Depiction of Disease, Alison C. Meyer writes, Woolf wrote in a diary in October 1918, we are in the midst of a plague unmatched since the Black Death. In What Can We Learn from Art of Pandemics Past, Megan O'Grady writes, Woolf, who had witnessed devastation of the 1918 flu pandemic that killed millions worldwide, made the title a heroine of the 1925 novel Mrs. Dalloway, an influenza survivor, embracing life and togetherness with flowers and friendship and a dinner party. After so much trauma, Woolf understood what it meant, this coming together of shell-shocked survivors of the 20th century. Quoting, this late age of the world's experience had bred in them all men and women, a well of tears, she reflects, tears and sorrows, courage and endurance, a perfectly upright and stoical bearing. April 24th, sentence number 32. A month has passed and I've started to feel like this situation is normal and begun going back to work as kindergarten has reopened. Thus, I'm contemplating how to continue this project as I'm working more like normal again. Should I follow through with all 140-ish sentences? Because when is this situation considered over? Will it be over or just fade into something else? What is the benchmark? And is this project giving you anything? I feel like being trapped in an open-ended modernist piece of writing, unsure of where I am and where I'm going. April 29th, sentence 37. We do not know our own souls, let alone the souls of others. This sentence is often quoted, maybe because it's so true. What is also true is my type is worn. This is the typecase I've used the most over the years. Purists would criticize using worn type, and I get it. But this project is about the build and the thinking, the forgetting and the rediscovering, and to look again at things in a different light and time. That is also why I like how the tear and wear and imperfections are reminding me that words must be chosen carefully. May 30th, sentence number 69. It is in their indifference that they are comforting. Today was supposed to be our wedding day. The weather is annoyingly great and the air smells of lilacs. And though it's sad that none of us really gets to celebrate and hug friends and family this year, love is still love, and I can't be anything but thankful for getting to spend my everydays with a genuinely generous and kind person, not forgetting he built me a freaking print shop. August 8th, sentence number 136. We have to remind ourselves that there is such a thing as atmosphere, that the masters themselves often keep us waiting intolerably while they prepare our minds for whatever it may be, the surprise or the lack of surprise. Seems the intolerable wait for the pandemic to pass is going to outlive this project by far, which I, in my naivety, hoped would not happen. It is as it is, so I choose to be excited about the work planned for this autumn and not letting this pandemic prevent me from appreciating life's little things, like mornings, enjoying the intoxicating smell of ink and fresh coffee, and a really great sentence. August 29th, 157th sentence, the end. And a sad end it was, but in a way it sums up what we feel both in illness and in health, to lose our loved ones. Thank you for taking part in this slow reading process and for sharing reflections on sentences along the way. I'm looking at the 20 stacks of paper recording 157 days of pandemic through this short yet very long story. Working on these sentences has been much more of an embodied experience than I could have ever imagined. It happens again and again that subjects find me, but maybe it's not so strange at all. Art is entangled with life and its different stages and moods. So when something is not clear or easy, I look for material to help make sense of the world, often through stories and work by others, that somehow helps me understand my own feelings and experiences. I found much comfort in working on this project and much frustration. And I hope some of you found some consolation in it too. Thank you for listening.